Welcome back to Coffee with the Counselors. I'm Tanya Barber, school counselor at Star Elementary.
And I'm Robin Richardson, school counselor at Ava Elementary.
And I'm Andrea Lawless, the school counselor at Flat Rock Elementary.
We're counselors here in Anderson School District 3 at elementary schools, and we do a podcast to enlighten our parents with different topics that might become an issue throughout the school year. Today, we are going to talk about homework tips because I think that can be a little bit of an issue for some parents. But before we start, we always talk about our coffee cups. So, Robin?
So today, my coffee cup is being brought to you by Miss Emily Wilson, the assistant principal at Strava Middle School. But she gave this to me as a little Cersei, so thank you, Emily.
Today I have a coffee cup provided by Andrea Lawless because I totally forgot mine. And it is beautiful. It says, "Go get 'em, Tiger." And I feel like I need that this week. I need a little go get 'em pep talk.
Make it through, too.
To make it through. We're getting close, yes.
Well, I have a coffee cup that was actually given to me for Christmas a few years ago by my principal, Miss Dodd, and I just love it. It's the perfect size, and it has my favorite colors in it.
Very pretty.
I love that too. All right, so homework.
Oh, yes.
The dreaded topic, right?
Homework tips. So I feel like y'all probably still have more involvement with this because you still have children in elementary age. But this can also even benefit those who have middle school students or high school students. But we are going to talk about homework tips today and some of the obstacles you might experience and just give you some tips on some things that might benefit you if homework is an ordeal. And I know that I have parents tell me frequently that, oh, when my kid gets home, homework is terrible. And it takes, sometimes I have parents tell me that it takes 3 and 4 hours. And that typically on an elementary level shouldn't be the case. And so we're going to talk about some things to give you some tips. And the first thing is called setting the stage. And I think a lot of that is just
prep work.
Yes. So we'll turn it over to Robin.
Okay, I'll do the beginning. So I have never thought about thinking about getting ready to do your homework before doing your homework. But when we were doing our research for today's podcast, I thought it was interesting, because I think sometimes we feel chaotic or rushed or just anxious about homework. But maybe if you do set that stage and you do have that prep work beforehand, that maybe it won't be quite as chaotic. But the two main things that I saw were creating a designated space and a designated time. I know for me and my family, it just always worked better if we were in the kitchen, at the kitchen bar, the little, in the kitchen, whatever, and then we did it right when we got home. I know that might not be the thing for everybody, but definitely picking a time and a space. And when you're picking that space, you want a space that's void of like TV or any other types of distractions. I'm guilty sometimes of while my son is working on his homework, then I'll start cooking supper or whatever, and that's probably not
Me too.
Not the best thing to do. Maybe I should put him somewhere else. But I do think eyes on, being able to see him, make sure he's doing what he's supposed to be doing and not getting frustrated or he doesn't need my help, and then picking that time. But I will say that right when you get off the bus or right when you get home might not work for your child. So kind of play with what time works.
I was talking to my girls this morning because we've tried both. We've tried doing it right when we get home. We've tried taking a break first and playing. But I found that while they love to take that break first, they then they don't want to stop with the break. And so 15 minutes turns into 25 minutes, or then it turns into, oh, Mom, I don't want to stop playing. And there's that whining piece. So that's tough, but I do think when we give our kids an opportunity to share what they think is best, or at least to have a little input, even when I don't agree with them, or maybe the final decision is not what they would choose, at least they had some buy-in and they had an opportunity to share.
Yeah. Another thing too was to just kind of know the teacher's expectation as far as homework is concerned. So my son is in 4th grade and his homework is optional. So there's no consequences teacher wise, if you don't do the homework, it's just for math, but there are rewards if you do the homework.
Okay.
But you know, I'm a kind of you're gonna do it kind of parent. So, and what was it, last week or week before last, just life got in the way. He got sick. We weren't able to do the homework as frequently. You know, it's like a couple of, like on Monday you do this row,
Right.
Tuesday you do this row, you know, that kind of thing. And I noticed when he had a graded assignment come home that week where we didn't do it every single night, that he didn't perform as well. And so I'm like, well, it does help, but knowing the teacher's expectation as far as, is it okay for me to help them with their homework? How much help are you? I know no teacher wants you to do it for them.
Right.
But if they're getting frustrated and they need your help, how much help do you want to give? And then I know we all get well, that's not how my teacher, that's not how Ms. Hayes does it, or that's not how.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, let's forget that we've all been educators for umpteen years, but we don't know how to do it like their teacher does. So that's a nice little.
Oh, yeah. I know one thing that I noticed, and that as I think back to when my kids were younger, if my kids were doing homework and I needed to do some schoolwork at home, if I sat with them and did my work too, it made it go by a little bit smoother, because they thought, oh, well, she's got stuff she's got to get done too. So it was kind of like we did our things together.
That's a
And
good
so
idea.
if you've got, you know, if you're taking work home, or maybe you're somebody that is able to work from home now, because that's very popular right now just because of the way things have been. So if you are somebody that has work to do at home, maybe save a little bit for homework time, and as much independence as they can have, you can get some things done too, and then assist as you need to. So I thought that was a good little point from this as well. So I think setting the stage is basically making sure that your kid has a place that they're comfortable to work in, that's free of distractions. And then, like you said, knowing the expectations of the teacher, and then
And, you know, if I could just expound on that about talking with the teacher, I know a lot of our teachers use the Dojo program to keep track of behavior, but my daughter's teacher also sends study guides and things through Dojo. So even though your child may have some notes and things in their Google Classroom or on paper, teachers generally have copies of study guides in Dojo, and if they send that to you and you can pull it up, that's helpful too when setting the stage to make sure that they have everything they need, because my kid forgets sometimes,
Yeah.
or
Or
she gets
misplaced it,
behind
yeah.
and she doesn't exactly have the right answers, you know, things like that.
And then the last thing for setting the stage was just being prepared with materials. So maybe like have a little caddy or a basket or some type of little organizational thing where you have pencils and pens and maybe some markers and you know, just have everything at the ready, so you don't have to keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping. But those were the key takeaways for getting prepared.
So now let's talk about during homework time, because this is typically when some of those frustrations arise. I think the biggest point here, and I think this is just in general
With anything,
with
life.
anything in
Yeah.
life, and we try to keep it that way, but sometimes we even need to think about this too. But having a positive attitude, I don't know how many times I have looked back on things that I have done or said during a homework experience, or even a sporting event experience, and thought, I should have had a better attitude, because I saw some of that negative attitude or poor attitude through my children. And then I'm like, oh, they may have learned that from me. And so keeping a positive attitude that this is going to benefit you, let's try to work on it together. I think that's really important during homework. And yes, as teachers, we know that you have things to do once you get home, and many of you have multiple children, and they're involved in lots of extracurricular activities. And then you have to fight with the fact that you have video games to compete with and things like that. So trying to make this a positive experience for each child is, I think, very important.
I agree.
I agree with that too. I know that we've had days where there were lots of things going on, and sometimes you have to be really creative in finding that time to designate towards homework. And And it is hard to be positive because, you're going down the road trying to look at a study guide or something like
Right.
that. But I think as long as we show our kiddos that we're trying, that will rub off on them as well.
Hopefully.
But you know what? It's normal to get frustrated. I know I can go from 0 to 60 real fast, and that's okay too, because even if we do get frustrated or we fail in having a positive attitude, the way that we recover from that, that's a teaching moment for our kids too. And we can use strategies during that time to calm ourselves down or to talk through it, and that's a good lesson for our kids because that's real life.
Yeah, true. And one of the things during homework is kind of watching and looking for those signs of frustration in your children too, because it may be as simple as, hey, we need to take a little break. Like, let's get up and stretch our legs, or let's do some breathing exercises to kind of get this down. Or if you're just becoming anxious or overwhelmed or whatever, let's have a snack. Or, I'm guilty with, let's sit down, let's get it done, let's put it up, and let's, go on to the next thing, because it's easier for me as a
Right.
mom to do it that way. But that might not be what my child needs at the time. So just paying attention to those cues too when they're getting overwhelmed or overstimulated during homework, just like working in those breaks.
And that's a good teaching moment too, is saying, okay, you know what? I know that you've been taught probably some deep breathing exercises or ways to stay calm when you're frustrated. And I can see that you're doing that. So maybe math is something that frustrates you. So let's practice a way to kind of work through that moment. And so that's good too, to incorporate, like you said, a deep breathing technique or some type of coping strategy. But I think it's important with the positive attitude and noting some of those frustrations and taking that break, maybe even setting a timer during that break so that the kid knows, okay, when the timer goes off, we're going to get right back to it. So I do think those are some important things that will help during homework time.
And when they do need that break or ask for that break, or you want to give them that break, already have expectations set beforehand of what a break looks like, because you were saying before that, that 5 minute of playtime or 10 minute of playtime turns into 25 minutes. And then it becomes an argument of, you got to come back. So it's probably not a good time to take a break as far as like, go do a whole nother something else, but a good time to take a break of like, I'm going to set a timer. Like you said, we got 5 minutes, go get you a snack, something to drink, or here's 5 minutes, go outside and run around the house 3 times and come back in, or, something to that effect, but set realistic boundaries to what that break looks like. Otherwise you are going to be doing homework all day, all night long.
I try to give my children a task that has the beginning and the end. Like, go check the mail and bring it back to me. Because that
that's a
way
good one.
you take a walk, you're outside, you get that fresh air, you're helping. And then when you get back, okay, it's over. And or I like to run around 3 times or go jump on the trampoline 10 times or something like that. Because once you complete that task, break's over and you get back to it.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you do when your child has completed their homework?
Pray that it goes in the folder.
Pray they turn it in.
Yeah.
So a great motivator, of course, when finishing is to allow them to do an activity that they enjoy after they're done. With video games, I know that's probably what a lot of kids finish homework and jump onto, or watching their favorite cartoon if they even watch those anymore, TV, that kind of thing, or going outside and playing. So making sure they have some rewarding time after they finish homework, especially if you're one of those that you do get that, let's get it done, and then you have the rest of the evening to enjoy. So, and this is also a really good time to talk to your kid about how their day went. And I know that a lot of times we'll say, okay, how was your day? And they say, it was good. And then that's all you get. And I really wish I would have done something different with my kids instead of just saying, how was your day? I really wish I would have thought and said, tell me one positive thing that happened today and even one negative thing that happened today, because then they at least have to answer with something other than it's fine.
We'll say, what was the best part of your day, or what was the favorite thing that happened today? And Holden's is always lunch. Like that. And he doesn't just say lunch, though. Like, he's very specific.
We
had chicken quesadillas, and those quesadillas were on time. I mean, like, he's very graphic about
He loves to lunch at his school.
I'm going to tell you, yes, those ladies' breakfast and lunch are his two favorite things. When we go out of town, and we'll see if the neighbor can take you. And he's like, nah, Mom, because they don't get there for breakfast time. So he does.
You know, talking to your kids and getting them to elaborate on their day. We had these napkins for a while at the house that we would use at dinner time or snack time or whatever. And they were conversation napkins. So there were 4 or 5 different designs, but each napkin had a talking point and a little cartoon drawing on it. So it would say, what was your wave and what was your wipeout, which would be the best and the worst? Or if you could have a superpower, what would it be? Just all these random questions. And we had the best time with those napkins. And it brought up really good talking points with my daughters and with me too, and my husband. And unfortunately, I cannot find the napkins anywhere. So if anybody sees conversation napkins,
Amazon that one, yeah.
Get them, because they're hilarious and they're lots of fun. But it's a great way to talk to your kids about their day and help them to process anything good that happened, but also anything not good that happened.
Go ahead.
So another thing I did want to talk about too was, you were talking at the beginning about some people are saying they're having 3 and 4 hours of homework and yada, yada, yada. And realistically speaking, most teachers, especially at our schools, I mean, we know generally the type of homework that they're assigning, whether it be just because we're in and out of the classrooms or our own personal children have been taught by them, you know, that kind of thing. And so we know that typically nobody is getting assigned 3 and 4 hours of homework. But one little piece of advice that I would suggest is that if you do see your child becoming like overly frustrated, or you are seeing that it has taken like an insane amount of time to do this homework, instead of being like, when your child is like, oh my God, so much homework, or, you know, yada, 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 instead of agreeing with them, or not that you're bashing the teacher or bad-mouthing the teacher, but you're bashing the situation, but kids don't recognize that difference at that age. And so to them, it's like you're giving them that negative connotation with homework. But instead of going along with that negative self-talk or whatever, have a conversation with the teacher privately. I mean, because it could be something underlying, you know, like she could have a tip or a trick, or it could be maybe your child didn't understand the homework assignment, as far as like, you don't have to do the whole page. You just need to do part A, or you just have to do the even ones, or you just have to do the odd. And even if it is like a whole sheet, I know I've sat in with parent conferences multiple times with teachers, and the teachers are like, look, hey, like, we're not going to get frustrated over homework like this. We're not going to disrupt your whole entire night. Do what you can. Or if there's 20 problems on homework, do, you know, a couple out of each section, just so that you know your child understands it. So I do think that we all want to work together, because we're parents too, and we don't want to spend that amount of time doing homework. So reach out to the teacher privately and just ask, like, hey, this has taken this amount of time, or we're getting extremely frustrated. Do you have some other tips that you could suggest?
I think too, and as our kids get more into 4th and 5th grade, I have noticed that a lot of them don't have a lot of homework skill or study skill, because things maybe were easy for them in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And, you know, 3rd grade is kind of where we start to see some of that content become really heavy. And I know at our school, or in our district, up until 4th grade, science and social studies is basically kind of pushed in through their reading assignments and things, and math and things like that. It's integrated. And so when they become 4th graders, now they have this whole new subject area that they have to study for for science and social studies. And so I've had a lot of kids this year, you know, fourth graders especially, like they don't know how to study for that because they've never had to learn dates and memorize information and
That is
people's
a lot of
names.
content.
And it is a lot of content, and it is in preparation for middle school and high school, and that's why we do it, I think, in our district. Plus, it's a tested area for the most part for science anyway. But and that becomes one of the things that I hear a lot of kiddos complaining about is so much to study. But I know at our school and probably at your schools too, like those study guides are pushed out in advance. And so one thing that they need to remember is if I read over just 10 minutes of it every day, what did y'all talk about today? Review that each evening, and that will benefit them and help them so that they're not trying to study for 3 hours the night before a test.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to do sometimes when you have other things, but that will help them in the long run as if they, you know, because it is a lot of content to spread it out over the week time or the 2 week time that unit takes. And that also shows them time management and shows them study skills as far as, hey, we're going to only study this chunk right here. And then tomorrow we'll study this. So I think that's something else to remember when you are doing homework is preparing for what's to come later on in the week or the unit as well. So,
What about those situations where you don't have homework?
always read.
Reading is always good. We have been anything. That's right. Even the fun stuff. And we have been using flashcards from the Dollar Tree, math flashcards. And recently the girls learned a few card games with decks of cards. So we've been doing some of that. And they think that's really fun. You know, Holly and Hannah have taught me several games that they play in the classroom using decks of cards or flashcards. And so it's been really fun to let them explain that to me and then see if I can beat them at their own game. And that's been a great
neat.
study tip, though,
Yes.
because
Yeah, I like that.
our grades on random math fact quizzes have drastically improved since we started trying to beat mom with math facts or playing
That's a
various
neat idea
games.
too.
I like that. That's cute too.
All right.
Well,
I think one thing before we go
Okay.
is if you are struggling still with homework tips, study guides, please reach out to the
Yes.
teacher or to one of us.
Absolutely.
There are lots of resources and links that we can provide for you for some study skills and some study ideas. But please do not hesitate to reach out to your teacher if homework has become a frustration. Because like Miss Richardson Robin said here a few minutes ago, that's the first place to check. Because it could be that they could say, you know, hey, wait a minute, they did misunderstand the homework assignment. So reaching out to the teacher first, and then, of course, reaching out to us, and maybe we can give you some ideas as well.